The locker room air hung thick with defeat. Sweat-soaked uniforms draped over benches like fallen soldiers. I slumped against the cold metal lockers, my shoulders heavy, tears blurring the championship banners overhead. The final buzzer still echoed in my mind, a cruel punctuation to the season's end. Our dreams shattering on that missed shot. The door creaked open, spilling dim light into the shadows. And there she was, Coach's silhouette, tall and unyielding. Her presence sliced through the charged silence, pulling me from my isolation like a current I couldn't fight. An internal ache surged, my vulnerability laid bare under her unreadable gaze. Dark eyes that always saw too much. As her footsteps approached, the space between us narrowed, forcing a confrontation I wasn't ready for. The final seconds replayed in my head, relentless, my shot arcing toward the hoop, only to clang off the rim as the opponent's roar drowned out everything. Their taunts followed us off the court, words like knives twisting deeper with every step. The team had scattered quickly, hurried exits, leaving echoes of slammed doors and muffled sobs from the showers. I stayed behind, alone with the sting, my fists clenching the damp jersey fabric against my chest. Every coaching directive I'd ignored that game flashed before me, her sharp calls from the sideline, urging precision, control. I'd pushed too hard, too recklessly, believing my fire could carry us. Now it mocked me. Coach's reputation as an unyielding force amplified every doubt crashing through me. She was the one who'd built this program from scraps, her strategies carving paths through doubt and defeat. Black woman in a white man's game, she'd told us once in a rare, quiet moment. Her voice, steady as steel. I'd admired that steel all season. The way it held the team together, held me together. But tonight, it made my failures feel monumental. Like I'd let down not just the squad, but her specifically. The metallic tang of blood filled my mouth from where I'd bitten my lip too hard during the drive home, in my mind, replaying the loss on an endless loop. My body ached from the hits, bruises blooming under my skin. But the real pain sat deeper, a hollow in my chest where leadership was supposed to live. Teammates' faces lingered in my thoughts, the way Sarah had punched the wall on her way out, her frustration mirroring mine. How Mia had lingered at the door, eyes red, whispering, "We'd get them next year." But next year felt impossible now. The season's end, a wall slamming down. I peeled off my jersey slowly, the fabric sticking to sweat-slicked skin, revealing the sports bra beneath, marked with the team's logo like a badge of betrayal. The mirrors across the room reflected a ghost of myself. Blonde hair matted, blue eyes swollen, fair skin flushed from exertion and shame. I'd been the captain, the one they looked to for fire, for direction, and I'd faltered. Unspoken longing stirred beneath it all, her authority a magnetic pull I'd resisted through every practice, every huddle. Those moments when her hand would steady my shoulder during drills, firm yet careful, sending a warmth I dismissed as adrenaline. Or the way her gaze would lock on mine across the court, assessing, intense, making my pulse quicken beyond the game. All season, I'd buried it under plays and stats, telling myself it was respect, nothing more. But here, in the empty room, with defeat stripping me raw, that pull resurfaced, sharp and unwelcome. What would she say when she found me like this? Would her disappointment cut deeper than the loss itself? The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the tiled floor scattered with forgotten tape rolls and water bottles. I sank lower against the locker, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them as if to hold myself together. The air cooled on my exposed skin, raising goosebumps, but I couldn't move to grab a towel. Memories flooded. Our first win under her. the team's roar blending with her rare smile. Late nights in the gym, her silhouette in the doorway as I shot free throws alone. She'd pushed me hardest, her critiques laced with something unspoken, a belief in me that now felt like a weight. My breath hitched, tears spilling freely now, tracing hot paths down my cheeks. The captain who never broke, breaking. Her shadow fell over me then, breaking the solitude with quiet command, her presence a force that demanded I face her. She didn't speak at first, just stood there in the doorway's dim spill, her silhouette sharpening as the door eased shut behind her. The click of the latch echoed like a judgment, sealing us in, together. I wiped my face hastily with the back of my hand, but the tears kept coming, hot and relentless, betraying the captain who was supposed to hold it all in. Coach's eyes, dark, unreadable pools that had commanded respect from every player, every rival, fixed on me now. Not with anger, but something softer, more piercing. It stripped away my defenses, leaving me exposed in ways the court never had. She moved then, her steps measured, the faint squeak of her sneakers on the tile the only sound breaking the hum of the fluorescence. As she neared, I caught her scent, cedar and something sharper, like resolve distilled into perfume, cutting through the stale air of sweat and defeat. My breath caught, body tensing as if bracing for a critique, but she didn't tower over me. Instead, she lowered herself gracefully, kneeling until her face was level with mine, knees pressing into the cool floor without hesitation. Up close like this, her features were formidable. High cheekbones, full lips pressed into a line of quiet intensity, skin a warm mahogany that glowed under the harsh light. Her coaching polo clung slightly from the game's humidity, outlining the strength in her shoulders, the poise that had always made her seem untouchable. "You've carried this team like a storm," she said, her voice low and steady, threading through my sobs like an anchor in rough water. There was a sultry undertone to it, unintended perhaps, but it wrapped around me, warm and insistent, making my skin prickle despite the chill. I'd heard her bark orders, dissect plays with surgical precision, but this was different, laced with a vulnerability she rarely showed. Her words hung between us, acknowledging the fire I'd poured into every drill, every sprint, but now they felt personal, like she saw the cost I'd paid in ways no one else did. I tried to nod, but my throat tightened, words failing as another wave of tears blurred her image. Her hand moved then, tentative at first, brushing my knee where my shorts had ridden up, damp skin still slick from the game. The touch was brief, professional, meant to steady, but it sent an unintended jolt through me, electric and sharp, racing up my thigh like a live wire. I froze, pulse hammering in my ears, the contact lingering in the air even after her fingers withdrew. It wasn't meant to be anything more, I told myself. Coaches checked on players, offered comfort, but the heat of her palm ghosted over me, stirring that buried longing I'd fought all season. The power she held, the way she could unravel me with a glance or a word. It hummed now, tangible, pulling me toward her orbit despite the boundaries screaming in my mind. Our eyes locked, her dark gaze piercing my fractured composure, seeing the cracks I'd hidden behind bravado and steals. In that moment, the locker room shrank, the world narrowing to the space between us, her breath even, mine ragged, her calm a sanctuary, my chaos a plea. She reached out again, slower this time, her thumb wiping a tear from my cheek with a gentleness that belied her reputation. The touch lingered seconds too long, her skin rough from years of gripping clipboards and scouting reports, tracing the line of my jaw before pulling back. Boundaries blurred in that hesitation, professional concern veiling the attraction that flickered in her eyes, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. I'd always admired her from afar, the way she navigated the league's skepticism with unshakable poise. But now, kneeling here, she was just Elena, human, close, close. Her own vulnerabilities peeking through the armor. The air thickened, charged with everything unsaid. My failures on the court, the weight of her expectations, the forbidden pull that had simmered through late-night film sessions and sideline glances. My hand twitched, wanting to cover hers, to bridge the gap. But I held back. Consent a silent question in the tension. She didn't push, didn't demand. Instead, she offered a nod, her voice dropping softer. Breathe with me, Riley, just for now. I did, matching her rhythm, the rise and fall of her chest a metronome pulling me from the edge. It was more than coaching, it was intimacy. Veiled but real. Her presence a balm on wounds deeper than bruises. She rose then, unfolding with the grace of someone who'd faced down worse defeats, offering silence as invitation, drawing me into her orbit without a word. The locker room seemed to empty further in that suspended moment. Though no one else had lingered, the distant slam of the arena doors faded into a hush, amplifying the intimacy of our shared breath. Ragged mind sinking unevenly with her steady exhale. The space between us felt alive, walls closing in like confidants, the air heavy with the residue of exertion and something more fragile, more dangerous. I shifted slightly against the lockers, the metal biting into my back, but I couldn't tear my eyes from her. Elena, standing now with arms loosely crossed, her posture a blend of authority and invitation that made my chest tighten. The vulnerability she'd glimpsed in me demanded reciprocity, or at least an attempt. Words clawed their way up, spilling out in fragments as I confessed the doubts gnawing at my core. I don't know if I can lead them anymore, I said, voice cracking on the failures that replayed like a looped highlight reel. The turnover in the third quarter, the missed free throws that sealed our fate, the way my calls had faltered under pressure. I pushed too hard, ignored your plays, thought my fire was enough, but it wasn't. The team looked to me, and I broke us. Tears welled again, hot and unbidden, tracing paths down my neck, soaking into the collar of my sports bra. Her nod came slow, deliberate, acknowledging without judgment, her dark eyes holding mine in a gaze that mapped every fracture I'd hidden behind steals and assists. It wasn't pity. It was recognition, the kind that bridged the chasm between coach and captain, pulling me deeper into her orbit. Her fingers grazed my arm then, a subtle affirmation. Rough calluses from endless clipboard grips brushing my damp skin like a promise of solidarity. The touch was light, professional in intent, but it lingered, sending a shiver through me that had nothing to do with the cooling air. I didn't pull away. Consent pulsed implicit in my unmoving stance, body leaning fractionally toward her, inviting the contact without demand. The graze trailed upward, stopping at my shoulder, her thumb pressing gently into the knot of tension there, as if easing not just muscle, but the weight of command I'd carried alone. Proximity simmered, her scent of cedar and resolve enveloping me, woody notes mingling with the faint salt of her own post-game sweat, creating a cocoon that blurred the lines we'd towed all season. My heart raced, a frantic drumbeat echoing in my ears, each thump amplifying the unspoken longing that had flickered during huddles. Her voice cutting through chaos to steady me. "You're more than the captain's armband, Riley," she murmured, her tone laced with evocative praise that wrapped around me like smoke. "Your fire on the court ignites more than wins. It lights paths for all of us, even when the lights go out." The words hung sultry, unintended perhaps, but they stirred the air between us. Her breath warm against my temple as she leaned closer, inspecting a bruise blooming on my collarbone from a late foul. Her fingers hovered there, not quite touching. The heat of her palm a tangible tease that made my pulse stutter. I swallowed hard, the vulnerability in her voice mirroring my own. A rare crack in her unyielding facade that made her seem less like the formidable coach and more like a woman navigating the same treacherous waters. The power she wielded, over plays, over us, hummed now as mutual. Her gaze dropping to my lips for a fraction too long before flicking back up. Boundaries tested but held by the silent agreement in our stillness. In that charged hush, confessions deepened. I admitted the isolation of leadership, how her sideline intensity had both fueled and frightened me, pushing me to edges I'd never reached alone. She listened, her hand withdrawing slowly, leaving a ghost of warmth on my skin. Her nod a silent vow to shoulder some of the load. Tension coiled tighter, the locker room's shadows lengthening as the arena lights dimmed outside. Pathetic fallacy to the internal storm brewing. Longing veiled in concern. Attraction simmering beneath professional restraint. My body ached for more, for her hand to return, to bridge the gap with deliberate slowness. But I held back, consent a careful dance we both understood. She straightened, breaking the spell without shattering it, her presence a sanctuary amid the ruins of defeat. Days passed in a training haze after that night, her glances across the gym fueling the unspoken current between us, pulling me toward horizons I'd only glimpsed in the dim light of confession. Days blurred into a relentless rhythm of recovery drills, the gym's polished floors echoing with the squeak of sneakers and the thud of medicine balls against mats. Sweat beaded on my skin from the start, the air thick with the scent of rubber and exertion. But it was her presence that heated everything, turning routine into something charged, inevitable. Elena's commands sharpened after that locker room night, her voice cutting through the haze of off-season prep with an intensity that felt personal, directed at me more than the team. We'd rebuilt the schedule around healing. Light runs, form checks, agility ladders, but every session pulled us closer. Her corrections laced with a proximity that blurred the lines I'd sworn to maintain. I caught her glances across the court, lingering a beat too long, dark eyes mapping my movements with a focus that stirred the ache she'd awakened. Unspoken longing coiling tighter with each passing drill. The team milled around us, oblivious to the undercurrent, their laughter punctuating stretches and water breaks, but the power dynamic hummed beneath the surface, electric and insistent. Sarah and Mia paired off for partner tosses, their banter a distant hum as Elena called me over for spotting. "Riley, form first, always," she said. Her tone steady, but there was a sultry edge to it now, like velvet over steel, making my pulse quicken before her hands even touched me. I positioned for the squat rack, barbell light for recovery, muscles still tender from the loss's bruises. She stepped behind me, close enough that her breath warmed the nape of my neck, cedar scent enveloping me amid the gym's sharper tang of liniment. Her hands settled on my hips then, guiding with firm precision, thumbs pressing into the dips above my waistband, adjusting my stance. The touch was professional, meant to align my core, but it lingered, her palms radiating heat through the thin fabric of my shorts, sending a shiver racing up my spine that had nothing to do with fatigue. "Keep that arch," she murmured, voice low against my ear, breath feathering my skin like a secret shared in the open. "That arch in your back commands the floor, makes every defender hesitate." The compliment slipped out sultry, unintended perhaps, but it wrapped around me, evocative and bold, her fingers flexing slightly to emphasize the curve, boundaries tested in the subtle pressure. I held the position, thighs burning, but the real fire bloomed lower, consent implicit in my steady breath, the way I leaned back fractionally into her hold without breaking form. Teammates glanced over occasionally, chalking it up to coaching rigor, but the intimacy of it thrummed between us, her body a solid line at my back, the space charged with everything we refused to name. She released me slowly, hands trailing upward to my shoulders in a final adjustment, rough calluses grazing exposed skin, leaving trails of awareness that echoed long after. As drills shifted to agility work, the tension simmered. Her proximity, a constant pull during partner drills where she paired me with her for demos. We'd mirror footwork patterns, bodies sinking in the narrow lane, her form impeccable, mine straining to match under her watchful gaze. A brush of arms here, a steadying hand on my elbow there. Each contact built the slow burn, vulnerability peeking through in the way her eyes softened when I nailed a crossover. Praise whispered just for me. Late-night film reviews extended the haze, the projector's glow casting blue shadows in the empty media room. Chairs pulled close as we dissected old losses. Her knee would brush mine under the table. Accidental at first, then lingering. The contact, a silent question answered by my unmoving leg. We'd share whispers about past defeats, hers from early coaching days, raw edges of doubt she'd buried. Mine from freshman slumps, the isolation of being the white captain in a program she'd forged. Boundaries tested gently in those confessions, her hand covering mine briefly during a tense replay, thumb stroking the back in reassurance, the touch electric yet restrained, consent clear in the mutual pause before withdrawal. The gym lights dimmed as sessions stretched, pathetic fallacy to the internal storm building, her authority yielding just enough to invite reciprocity without shattering the fragile harmony. Every correction, every shared glance fueled the current, pulling me deeper into the orbit I'd glimpsed that night, horizons sharpening with promise and peril. A heated argument erupted mid-practice one afternoon, her frustration boiling over a botched drill, fracturing the fragile harmony we'd nurtured in whispers and touches. The gym pulsed with the afternoon's relentless energy, medicine balls thumping against mats, players' grunts punctuating the air as we ran through defensive slides. I'd been off all session, my feet sluggish, mind tangled in the haze of her touches from earlier drills, her hands on my hips, the sultry edge to her corrections that lingered like a promise. Elena paced the sideline, clipboard in hand, her dark eyes scanning us with that unyielding focus. But today, it sharpened on me, frustration etching lines around her mouth. When I botched the next play, hesitating on a switch, letting the imaginary defender slip through, the whistle pierced the din, shrill and unforgiving. "Riley!" Her voice cracked like a whip, echoing off the rafters, drawing every head our way. She strode forward, polo shirt clinging to her frame from the heat, authority radiating in waves that made the team freeze. "What was that? You telegraph every move out there. Sloppy, unfocused. If you can't lock in, how the hell do you expect them to follow?" The rebuke landed sharp, mirroring the fears I'd confessed in the locker room weeks ago, the doubts about my leadership twisting back on me like a bad rebound. Her words weren't just about the drill. They carried the weight of our unspoken current, the way my distractions, her, always her, had seeped into my game. I felt exposed, the team's eyes on us amplifying the sting. Sarah whispering to Mia as if dissecting my failure. Heat flushed my cheeks, a mix of shame and something fiercer. The attraction we'd danced around twisting into accusation in my chest. "I'm trying," I shot back, voice rising, ball slipping from my grip to roll across the floor. "But you're pushing like it's the finals, not recovery. Maybe if you eased up," the words tumbled out, reckless, laced with the resentment I buried under longing. Her eyes narrowed, dark and stormy, the power dynamic flaring hot between us, her frustration a mirror to my own unraveling control. The team shifted uneasily, but she didn't back down, stepping closer, voice dropping to a heated murmur that only I could hear. "Eased up? That's what got us the loss. Your fire without focus. Don't make me regret believing in it." The gym blurred, my pulse thundering as betrayal's sting bloomed, the harmony we'd nurtured in touches and glances fracturing under the public glare. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't face the team seeing me falter under her. Dropping the ball fully, I stormed off, sneakers squeaking in protest against the court, jersey whipping behind me as I shoved through the double doors to the locker room. The cool air hit like a slap, solitude wrapping around me again, but laced now with a sharper edge. The echo of her words twisting the longing into doubt. Had she seen through me all along? The captain's mask cracking to reveal the woman drawn to her coach's orbit. I slammed my locker open, fists clenching the edge, breath ragged as tears pricked my eyes. The space felt smaller, shadows lengthening from the high windows. Pathetic fallacy to the storm raging inside. Attraction poisoned by fear, vulnerability weaponized in her rebuke. Footsteps followed, deliberate and unhurried, the door shutting with a finality that sealed us in. I didn't turn, shoulders rigid, but her presence filled the room, cedar scent cutting through the stale humidity. "Riley, wait." Her voice softened fractionally, but the air thickened with unresolved longing, the space between us humming like a live wire. I spun then, words rising hot and unfiltered. "Why push so hard? Is it the team, or just me you doubt?" Accusation laced every syllable, the forbidden pull surfacing raw, her authority clashing with my ache. She closed the distance, voices rising in the confined echo, her defending the rigor that built champions, me firing back about the isolation she amplified, the way her intensity both ignited and isolated me. But as shouts peaked, something shifted. Her gaze dropped, vulnerability flickering in the clench of her jaw, mirroring my own fracture. Voices softened, the argument ebbing into heavy breaths, the tension coiling not in anger, but in the unspoken truth we'd skirted. She stepped closer, invading the physical space with deliberate slowness, her hand rising to my shoulder, firm, halting my retreat, thumb pressing into the muscle with a warmth that steadied rather than restrained. The touch grounded me, consent clear in the way I didn't shrug it off, body leaning into the contact as boundaries blurred once more. Her dark eyes held mine, the rebuke fading into regret, the power yielding to mutual ache in that charged proximity. Silence descended then, paving the way for a raw apology in the dim confines, her hand lingering as if afraid to let go. The silence wrapped around us like a held breath, the locker room's dim confines amplifying every shift, every subtle draw of air between us. Her hand remained on my shoulder, thumb tracing a slow, deliberate circle into the tense muscle there. Not demanding, but anchoring, as if she feared the words about to spill would scatter us both. I met her gaze, dark eyes now softened at the edges, the storm of our argument ebbing into something rawer, more exposed. Elena's composure, that unyielding facade she'd worn like armor through seasons of scrutiny, cracked just enough to reveal the woman beneath, vulnerable, human, her full lips parting as she searched for the right fracture to mend first. "I overreached," she said finally, voice husky with a rare vulnerability that rasped against the quiet, like gravel underfoot on a familiar path. It wasn't the coach speaking, not the one who'd built empires from doubt. This was Elena, admitting the weight her words had carried, heavier than intended in the heat of frustration. Pushing you like that, in front of them, it wasn't just about the drill. It was me, seeing you pull away and fearing I'd lose the fire that binds us all. Her admission hung there, sultry in its honesty, the husky timbre wrapping around my name unspoken, stirring the ache that had simmered since that first breakdown. She didn't look away, her mahogany skin flushing faintly under the fluorescent hum, a tell I'd never noticed before, making her seem less formidable, more reachable in the charged space. My hand moved of its own accord, covering hers where it rested on my shoulder, fingers curling over her knuckles with a gentleness that surprised us both. The contact was sustained, deliberate. Consent clear in the way I pressed down, holding her there without retreat, our palms aligning in a quiet vow against the cool metal at my back. Her skin was warm, calloused from years of guiding plays and lives, and the roughness grounded me, sending a shiver through my frame that echoed the internal shift. Power yielding not to surrender, but to mutual ache. The boundaries we'd towed now blurring into something shared. I could feel her pulse beneath my touch, steady yet quickening, mirroring the frantic rhythm in my chest. The unspoken longing we'd veiled in drills and glances now surfacing like a tide pulling us under. She exhaled slowly, her free hand rising to brush a stray lock of my matted blonde hair from my forehead, the gesture tender, fingers lingering at my temple before trailing down to cup my jaw. "Your strength undoes my control. Every game," she murmured, the sultry admission slipping out like a confession long buried, her voice dropping to a velvet whisper that feathered against my skin. It was evocative, laced with the intensity of sideline stares and late-night reviews, admitting how my drive on the court, my arch in motion, my unyielding fire, had chipped at her resolve, turning authority into attraction she could no longer deny. The words ignited something deep, a heat blooming low in my belly, but it stayed there, restrained by the careful distance we maintained, her thumb stroking my cheekbone with a touch that promised without demanding. I leaned into it, body responding with a tentative shift, closing the gap until our frames aligned in charged stillness, her polo brushing my bare shoulder, the cedar of her scent enveloping me fully now, mingling with the faint salt of my tears. The embrace formed slowly, her arms encircling my waist with hesitation, pulling me forward until my forehead rested against her collarbone, the steady thrum of her heartbeat a sanctuary amid the ruins. It was intimate, bodies pressing close but not consuming, the mutual ache mapping new landscapes inside me, vulnerability no longer a solitary storm but a shared horizon where power balanced on the edge of desire. Her hand slid up my back, fingers splaying wide in reassurance, the touch electric yet ethical, consent woven into every pause, every unspoken check as I melted against her, breath sinking in the hush. We held there, time stretching in the dim light, shadows playing across the lockers like witnesses to our unraveling. But as the intensity peaked, she pulled back fractionally, her gaze searching mine with a clarity that reaffirmed the lines we couldn't cross. Not yet. "This waits beyond the court if we choose," she said softly, voice steadying into resolve, her hand withdrawing with deliberate slowness, leaving warmth in its wake. It was a boundary redrawn, not in rejection, but in respect, honoring the roles that bound us until the season's end. The attraction, a slow burn to be kindled ethically, with time and choice. I nodded, the ache settling into anticipation, our fingers brushing one last time before parting, the power dynamic shifting to something equitable, mutual. Weeks built from there, the calendar coiling toward the championship rematch, tension tightening with every practice glance, every shared breath in the gym's relentless pulse. The championship rematch arrived like a storm we'd both seen brewing. The arena's roar a thunder that vibrated through my bones as I laced up on the bench, heart pounding in sync with the crowd's chants. Weeks of coiled tension had sharpened us, practices laced with her sidelined intensity, every glance across the court a silent fuel that ignited my drive, turning doubt into determination. Elena paced the sideline now, her dark eyes locked on me during warm-ups, unreadable yet electric. Her presence a magnetic pull that steadied my nerves amid the pregame haze. The air hummed with stakes higher than the season's end. Redemption for the loss. But deeper, a test of the fragile harmony we'd forged in touches and apologies. Her authority now a shared current propelling me forward. As tip-off neared, her nod found me across the huddle, subtle but waited, whispering belief without words. Her sultry edge in that gaze making my skin prickle beneath the jersey. The game unfolded in a blur of sweat and strategy, pressure peaking as the clock ticked down in the fourth, our lead razor-thin. Defenders swarmed me like shadows, but her voice cut through from the bench. "Riley, own it." Low and commanding, fueling the fire she'd praised in whispers. I drove the lane, her intensity echoing in my veins, the power dynamic alive in every crossover, every pivot that echoed our private dances. A foul sent me to the line with seconds left. The arena's breath held. Her eyes bored into mine from afar, dark and unwavering, a sanctuary amid the chaos. The first free throw swished clean, her subtle fist pump a rare crack in composure. The second sealed it, buzzer blaring victory as the ball dropped through, teammates piling on in a roar that drowned the remnants of defeat. But true release came not in the cheers, but in her post-game glance across the court. Intense, promising, pulling me through the celebration toward horizons we'd only mapped in silence. The locker room cleared in waves, echoes of laughter and high fives fading as the team dispersed, leaving the space dim and hushed, fluorescent hum the only witness. I lingered, towel draped over my shoulders, body thrumming with adrenaline's afterglow. Bruises from the battle, a map of resilience she'd once called sanctuary. The door clicked shut behind the last straggler, and there she was, Elena's silhouette filling the frame. Her coaching gear rumpled from the sideline's fervor, mahogany skin glistening faintly under the light. Our eyes met, the victory's high amplifying the unspoken longing that had simmered through every drill, every apology. She crossed the room with deliberate steps, the air thickening as proximity reignited the charge between us. Hands intertwined then, slow and intentional. Her fingers lacing through mine with a gentleness that belied the game's ferocity, calluses rough against my palm in a touch that grounded and ignited. Consent pulsed clear in the pause, her gaze searching mine for affirmation before pulling me closer, our frames aligning in the shadowed alcove by the lockers. The heat of her body radiated through damp fabric, suggestive without demand. Her free hand rising to trace the line of my jaw, thumb brushing my lower lip in a feather-light promise. "You commanded it all tonight," she whispered, voice husky with sultry praise, breath warm against my skin, evoking the arch she'd guided, the fire she'd confessed undid her. Lips brushed then, not a full kiss but a graze, soft and electric, lingering at the corner of my mouth in heated restraint, boundaries held by mutual will. The contact a spark that merged our emotional landscapes without consuming. Unspoken longing voiced itself in murmurs there, her forehead resting against mine, breaths mingling in the charged stillness. "This fire, yours, ours. It's more than the court," she said softly, words weaving vulnerability into certainty, admitting how my drive had reshaped her control, turning authority into alliance. I nodded, hand squeezing hers, the ache we'd navigated now a shared pulse, consent guiding every whispered hint of future. Off-season explorations beyond the gym's confines, slow steps honoring roles until resolved. Her touch withdrawing with reluctance, but resolve. The victory's glow lingered in that reunion, tension uncoiling into anticipation. Our silhouettes blending in the dim light as the arena's distant cheers faded. Resolutions settled in the quiet that followed, leading to a reflective close where bonds deepened beyond the game's echoes. The quiet in her office felt like a revelation after the arena's roar, the door sealing us away from the world's demands, fluorescent desk lamp casting a warm pool over scattered playbooks and a half-empty coffee mug. Weeks had blurred since the rematch victory, off-season haze settling into tentative routines, shared film sessions that stretched into evenings, her hand brushing mine over diagrams, consent in every lingering pause. Now, with the championship ring glinting on my finger like a quiet vow, we sat close on the worn leather couch, knees touching in deliberate proximity, the air scented with her cedar and the faint vanilla of cooling tea. Elena's fingers found the faded scar on my forearm, a souvenir from a freshman collision, tracing it with a feather-light touch that sent shivers across my skin. Her mahogany nails contrasting against my fair complexion in a map of shared history. "Your resilience is my sanctuary," she murmured, voice husky with deepened compliments that wove through the stillness, sultry in their intimacy, evoking how my unyielding drive had become her anchor amid coaching storms. The words settled deep, her thumbs circling the raised tissue slowly. Professional boundaries yielding to this private exploration, consent clear in my unmoving arm. The way I angled toward her, inviting the contact without haste. Laughter broke the tension then, unexpected and light, sparked by my recounting a botched drill from early season, how I'd tripped over my own feet under her watchful gaze, turning her stern nod into a rare, crooked smile. She chuckled low, the sound rumbling from her chest, vibrating through our joined hands, vulnerability forging a deeper bond as masks fell away, revealing the women beneath roles we'd navigated so carefully. We spoke of pace then, her dark eyes holding mine with unreadable depth, agreement forming in whispers. Slow, ethical steps, honoring the power we'd balanced. No rushing the off-season's promise until contracts cleared and worlds aligned. "We chart this together," she said softly, her hand withdrawing to cup my cheek, palm warm and steady. The touch a seal on our understanding. Bodies close but restrained, heat simmering in the scant inches between us, unspoken longing voiced in the subtle lean of her frame. My heart's cartography completed itself in that moment, ambiguity lifting into certainty, the internal ache transforming from solitary storm to shared horizon, her presence a balm on scars both visible and hidden, fingers intertwined once more, rough calluses against smooth skin. We lingered in the hush, laughter fading into contented silence, the office's shadows softening around us like an embrace long earned. The story circled back in my mind to that first breakdown, the locker room's defeat no longer a fracture, but a foundation, transformed by her unexpected approach into the spark that ignited this slow burn. What had begun in tears and isolation now bloomed in quiet offices and stolen glances. Vulnerability no longer a weakness, but the thread binding us. Power yielding to partnership in ways the court could never contain. The door clicked shut on the empty locker room, our silhouettes merging in shadow, hands lingering one final beat before parting. If this slow burn ignited something in you, subscribe for more tales of forbidden fires that reshape worlds. Comment your most dangerous setting for desire. Turn on notifications for the next chapter.